From what I'm aware, there are several adaptations of this story. The original release was a series of episodes that aired on MTV that was generally considered to be really good. There was also a comic book and a film released a few years later, but the comic book really isn't important here. What is, however, are the games. From what I've read, there are at least two other games that were in development, one in 1996 and the other in 2000, both of which were unfinished. But today's main event is the game tie-in release to the movie.
We have to do something, my brother. Something clever. The people are bored, restless, without direction. They need an outlet. They have jobs, but require something to fill their leisure time. Something. Diversion, distraction, spectacle, something that couldn't matter less.
AEon Flux, made by Majesco and Terminal Reality, is an action game released on the PlayStation 2 as well as the original Xbox and came out on November 15th, 2005. Happy 20th anniversary. This game was interesting to say the least, but I mean honestly, sometimes I find my eyebrows raised in confusion when the story is being told to me. But I'd probably argue that the story is probably being told at me instead of to me.
Back here, Keller. Tonight's models are preparing to take the runway. They're edgy tonight, like something spooking them. We've heard the 2-minute buzzer, and the designers have been escorted to their holding cells. Ooh, and here's a surprise. Dietz LaFrache's favorite model, Squalor, has been replaced at the last minute.
If someone had asked me what the first word that came to mind was when talking about this game, it would probably be strange. It falls between interesting whilst also being convoluted in some of the wildest ways.
Like objective overlay set directly to your monocle. A marker shows your next destination.
It's on. Improved over last season's.
Of course, swim or die, the whole thing, and now, of course, I said it first.
The game is loosely based off of the film adaptation and was released alongside it. On the game's box, there is even a reward for purchasing the game, which is a ticket for the movie. While I was researching the plot of the game, just to remember what I had played, it became obvious to me that no one really understood the plot as well, at least for the game. Most of the synopses I found online are mostly just one paragraph, at most two, which, to be fair, is what I also plan on doing anyways.
You are mine, all of you. Oh, tiny creatures, weep openly, tremble in the presence of Lefroche.
The game is set in the future, in the year 2145, where a disease had essentially killed off most of humanity, and most of what's left of it lives in a walled-off city-state named Bregna, built by the scientists that had created the vaccine for the virus. These scientists kind of turned into a conglomerate of dictators, with a man named Trevor Goodchild at the top. However, there's a race of people named the Monicans that live underground that aren't too happy with Trevor and wish to see him dethroned. The base of their assassination attempts and stems from the fact that he wants to eliminate the Monicans as well as create a device that allows him to mind control the populace at large.
It's more spectacular than the last.
Dietz, I'm going to switch to monocular test only now, okay? Not you. It's your voice. Dietz.
Soaring, but also leaping, like this soul leap, yes. The lines, they undulate like swollen water and they crash upon the ragged iron shore. I can see the carbon fiber layers tarted over.
I'm not even sure where to start when it comes to the game's story itself. The game has a tendency to jump around and kind of leaves you to fill in the blanks. The start of the game is a deadly beauty contest to get closer to Trevor and his mind control project, which I find strange because as you find out later in the game, Trevor already knows about you and what you're plotting anyways, but whatever. You end up sneaking through some vents and find yourself in some sort of not-so-secret laboratory. This is where the majority of the game takes place, which is inside this lab. I can't really understand what's going on here from this point. The objectives are kind of all over the place, which is kind of disappointing. It feels like a hand wave saying, oh, this is just to get closer to Trevor.
Of course, LaFrache. The action-packed drama unfolds under the stars in the majestic standing room only Central Coliseum. Who's the projected frontrunner this year?
Up to tell ya, Melanie Q is wearing beefskin tonight, and they're both big favorites.
We're coming to the end of the first round of Fashion of the Fittest. Join us for more state-sponsored mayhem
And style.
as we finish round one.
Even when you find yourself outside, the level design is strange. At the second chapter in the game, you find yourself being acquainted by one of Aeon's friends/mentors, Sithandra. This is mostly unimportant and is kind of really just there to push the quote plot along. Oddly enough, her friend has had surgery on her feet to make them hands, which the game is sure to remind you whenever it gets the chance. Mostly nothing of note happens until Sithandra, the one with hands for her feet, gets abducted and has dumb mind control done to her, all to make her fall in love with Trevor. And now she wants to defend him with her life, which what she does. You defeat her, but Anne doesn't really seem to care all that much, but unfortunately the whole lot of nothing happens until later in the game. At around this point in the game, I was kind of playing with my eyes glazed over from boredom, but the game has sort of a twist. As it turns out, AEon is a clone, or at least a series of clones. This is shown to you from what a cutscene is, where you encounter yourself at the same time you die. Now you take control of the clone as she tries to finish the mission. Super strange.
Good, that's what makes it fun.
Get us some samples if you can.
However, the game doesn't even end there with the twists. As it turns out, Trevor had made the clones and is married to one of them, which you take control of for a few missions until it swaps out with another clone, or at least what I interpreted as a clone. I can't really tell. But since the bride clone has rebelled against Trevor, the whole city-state is out on a manhunt. This all culminates on an airship, with Trevor being the last boss fight. With Trevor being defeated, the airship crash lands into the city, which leads to a swarm of machines that come and destroy all inorganic matter. The final cutscene shows that nature has taken over, which I can't really tell if this is supposed to be a good thing or not. I mean, literally the last bastion of humanity was just destroyed, and the game just kind of ends. Now onto the gameplay. Uninspired, that's probably the word I'd pick. There's a bit of a style meter that increases the amount of damage you do over time, which is decreased if you take damage. However, it's an action game with a combo system that leaves so much to be desired. You have a series of light and heavy attacks, as well as a finisher when the enemy you're attacking's health goes red. There are 4 finishers, but the one you'll be using the most is definitely the heal one. Without exaggeration, this heal is practically the main finisher you'll be using. However, if you press another button, the combo ends in a throw, which is required for flying enemies and or some puzzles. Speaking of puzzles, the puzzles in the game aren't really all that hard. Some of them are kind of nonsensical, but really not that hard anyways, just look up a guide. And there's also another gameplay mechanic where you have to like morph into this ball, drop down some hoops. There's usually some combat here, but it really is just you bashing into the enemy with the ball. Speaking of that, there's another gameplay quote-unquote mechanic where you have to solve a quote puzzle when you really just have this little orb thing that you drive around like G-force and get it in like this little socket thing. These are kind of like the ends of puzzles and have weird layouts and whatnot, and really all it really does is just either end a level or open up a door for another part of the level. But to really tie things together, the controls are mind-numbingly janky. It really puts a hamper on things. The movement kind of changes on a dime, and on some instances Anne will just like run and then break into a full-blown sprint, which makes me feel like the movement sensitivity is set to max even though it really isn't. This applies to combat and during platforming. Speaking of combat, the auto lock-on system is awful. Really bad. It's even worse when you're required to fight flying enemies or enemies holding a shield. I swear, AEon will just look at them and just start punching the air around them. It is so frustrating. Off of the top of my head, there's also around 3 real boss fights in the game. The game's first boss, Una, which is Aeon's sister, and Sithandra, the one who has hands for feet. These are really just gimmick fights that end rather abruptly. And the last one, it sucked. A lot. I almost gave up on it. Trevor. Trevor sits on an area where you can't really reach him, and you'll send out goons to take care of you, as well as orbital strikes from the top of the airship. After a few waves or so, he'll come down and take care of you himself. He himself isn't too hard, but after a bit, he'll go back up there, and you have to repeat the cycle at least 5 or so more times. What got me annoyed at this so much was that there's almost no healing here. You have to get your healing from the combo. But good luck getting it off. There's just too many enemies here that are either flying or do damage to you even while you hit them. All that, alongside these orbital strikes, is really just a recipe for disaster. And after you beat him, the game just kind of ends with like a not even a minute or so cutscene. Onto the art direction. I have to assume people at the time thought this was cutting edge, but it really feels kind of dull when you're inside the lab levels. I'd say that the only times the games look really interesting is when you get to play through the garden level or when you're allowed into the city. The enemy design is also kind of boring, and so is the main character and her friends, including Cassandra, the one who had hands for feet. Outside of the outdoor levels, there's really nothing of note, and even then there are some outdoor levels that are just plain boring to look at. The city and the gardens are really where the game shines. That and the pre-rendered cutscenes, but those are really just standouts.
Me? All I said is that you're prettier than she is.
Musically, I'm once again impressed by Majesco's music team. Much like Avant Rising, this soundtrack is something you should give a listen to. But for some reason, the mixing has to be off in the game. You can barely hear it while playing outside of boss fights. It's a mix of techno, rock, and orchestral. Too bad you can't hear it normally. On a side note, there's not really a main menu theme either. It's just some old dude whispering in your ear as you flip through your options. I can't say much for the other adaptations because I haven't seen them yet, but I've heard great things about them. Unfortunately, this seems to follow the curse of other movie game adaptations. It's okay at best and really just takes too long to beat. Reading some of the reviews at the time, they were really onto something here. Reception of the game at the time labeled the game a mere 6 or 8 out of 10, which I'm inclined to agree with. The 6 seems like a perfect rating that I can give it. It's unfortunate that it's just a kind of okay, maybe at best to play, because from what I'm aware, the MTV series had glowing reviews and the movie was supposed to be pretty good. But such is the curse of video game adaptations. Thank you everyone for stopping by and watching my video. I really appreciate it. If you want to like, comment, and subscribe, I would be greatly appreciative. My next video would be on Alias for the Xbox. Thank you everyone and have a great day.
I'm the last model.
Oh, are you? Well, this is fashion of the fittest, and 2 models remain standing.
What? Who's the other model?
Why, Oren here. If you'd paid more attention to the competition, you'd have noticed he's been competing in each round.
Who's his designer?
Well, he's wearing a little something I threw together. Fetching, don't you think? Oren